We begin with President Donald Trump, who once claimed that he was going to win so much. Remember that? People were going to get tired of winning. He has not had such luck recently, with his administration facing a string of new defeats in court. Everything from his mass deportation efforts, freezing grants at universities, deploying troops to Los Angeles, and even last week's ruling declaring Trump does not have the authority to impose his sweeping tariffs, all of that is hitting the legal guardrails. And another loss came late yesterday when a judge blocked Trump from canceling protections from deportation for more than 1 million Venezuelans and Haitians living here in the United States. The administration has already appealed many of those rulings with the likely goal of having them appear before the conservative majority Supreme Court. And when it comes to the efforts of this Justice Department in pursuing Trump's questionably legal orders, one federal magistrate judge took the DOJ to task in discussing what he claims is the trampling on the civil rights of people arrested during Trump's law enforcement surge in Washington, D.C., Judge Zia Faraki said this of the U.S. Attorney's Office, quote, "It's not fair to say they're losing credibility. We're past that now." He later added, "There's no credibility left." Joining us now, Andrew Weissmann, an MSNBC legal analyst, former FBI general counsel, and former senior member of the Mueller probe, and Stuart Stevens, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project and Mitt Romney's chief strategist for his 2012 campaign. Andrew, I want to start with you because what I take from all of this is not the losses, and we'll get to that because it's important for people to understand, that the guardrails are still kind of there. But Donald Trump, as you know, is a very patient man when it comes to legal fights, right? He is completely fine dragging things on for a long time because in the meantime, he's still kind of able to do whatever he thinks he wants to do because in his head, the Supreme Court will both back him and is the only court that he kind of wants to listen to. So talk a little bit about the patience that he has to kind of fight and wait for these losses to become wins.
That is such an excellent point. When you think about what he did with, let's say, firing FBI agents and career prosecutors, or what he's done with law firms issuing these executive orders, from his perspective, even if he loses, he wins. The people who he fired from the Department of Justice, they're gone. They're bringing lawsuits. Even if they win those, eventually, they're still gone. And all that happens is the government pays back pay. That's sort of the main story of he got rid of them. The terrorizing effect within the department has happened. Same thing if you look at law firms. Every single executive order that was challenged has been struck down. The district courts are unanimous saying they violate the law, but the effect is still there. So from his perspective, it's not even waiting for the long term. He sort of wins no matter what, even with the courts saying there's a problem. And you see it also where part of the thing that I'd say people should watch is, are the courts giving some interim relief to the plaintiffs? Because without that interim relief, without saying, no, they're back in their position, he wins during that delay. He knows the delay is good for him.
Yeah, Andrew, actually, I want to stay with you on that for a second because you just really nailed it. I mean, Trump is not just using the courts as a shield. He's using it as a sword. Right. And losing seems to be the point at this point. But should there be, other than giving the plaintiffs relief, can there be any sort of penalty or disbarment or any sort of type of accountability for this abuse of the judicial system?
There should be. And where I think you are seeing it is the lawyers who actually show up in court do not say, and they cannot say when you're representing the government, you can't say, well, we're just going to ignore what you're saying. And so they are coming up with times with maybe losing, but at least arguments that are within the realm of the sort of possible. At other times, and this goes to your introduction, they're saying things that, again, aren't like we're defying your order, but they might as well say that because what they are offering as an excuse is so lame, so outside of the norm that you're having judges say, you know what, the presumption of regularity, the presumption that when the government comes in, they're going to tell the truth, good, bad, or indifferent, even if it hurts their case, that's sort of expected. I was in the government for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what was expected. That's what judges expect. And when they're not seeing that over and over again, you are seeing judges, and to be clear, judges appointed by Republicans and Democrats, including judges appointed by Donald Trump, are all reacting the same way, that it is sort of outside the bounds.
It reminds me of a song from RuPaul's Drag Race that says, I'm not going to sing it, but it's losing is the new winning. And it feels very much where Donald Trump
Mr.
is.
Broadway.
Exactly. Stuart, I want to bring you in here. And maybe we're way past this, but I think, the Republican Party of the Republican Party that, when you were trying to help Mitt Romney win in 2012, would look at a lot of the things that Donald Trump is doing and seeing it as stretching federal power, the executive branch having too much power. He himself, at some point in 2012, said that there was too many executive orders coming out of the Obama administration. When you look at how Congress, the Republicans in Congress, have basically abdicated so much of the checks and balances of it all, how do you think about that as someone who, I assume, cares about the health of the Republican Party?
Yeah, look, I think that's a fantastic question, and we don't talk about it enough. What's basically happening here is an Alex Jones fantasy of what the left was going to do. The left said you're going to have an all-powerful executive branch that would enforce their will on states. Remember, 10 years ago, there was this little flap in the far right about the Jade Helm exercises that supposedly Obama was doing because there was a military exercise going on in Texas, and they're going to be using Walmarts to station people and all this stuff. It was all just nutty. But that's really what Trump is doing now. You have the Republican Party is going insane about a guy running for mayor who's talking about maybe 5 city-owned grocery stores in New York City, and they're perfectly okay with nationalizing key industries like Intel. And, the sad conclusion is that all of these things that we said in the Republican Party that we believed as deep values, I don't know any honest conclusion to come to except that they were marketing slogans. And the party never believed in this stuff. We're now the pro-Putin party. We're now the party that has United States soldiers on their knees rolling out the red carpet for a mass murderer. We're the nationalized Intel. And if anybody thinks they're going to stop at Intel, are you kidding? They're going to go after Apple. They're going to go after Google. They're going to go after Meta. Of course they are. This is Donald Trump. And we have this difficulty in how to talk about this because just by force of habit and the fact that we're all normal, we try to talk about this as a normal time. But it's not. The Republican Party is not a functioning American political party, and as we've known it, it has become an extremist movement that is completely under the control of a guy who is basically a gangster in the White House.
And I want to look ahead to this week and the potential for possible deployment of the National Guard to additional cities like Chicago, maybe New Orleans, Portland. Who knows what Trump is going to say next. But a federal judge ruled that Trump deployment of military troops to Los Angeles was illegal. The ruling said that such conduct is a serious violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. In fact, these violations were part of a top-down systemic effort by defendants to use military troops to execute various sectors of federal law. This judge also, by the way, accused the Trump administration of creating a national police force with Donald Trump as its chief. What does this mean for the potential deployment? I mean, can a ruling like this stop that in its tracks, Andrew?
It can for the moment. It is something that's stayed while it's being appealed. This will ultimately go to the Supreme Court. But to the district judge's point, the most recent executive order on this is explicitly about creating a national force. Just to be clear, while the title of that executive order talks about D.C., the substance of it says there will be a force that can be used nationwide. Where are we seeing it happen? We're seeing it happen in blue states and cities. What I am looking to is what is going to happen before the midterms, and getting people used to the idea of the military, the ruse of saying we're doing this because of a crime problem, which is, in my view, a total ruse. There will be a crime problem. There's always a crime problem everywhere, and that's going to be the thing that allows you to do this, then you can just have the military everywhere and violate the Passepartout Act, with abandon. And to me, the real thing to keep an eye out is the military going to be used as a way to deter voting in advance of the midterms? To me, that is sort of the part of the end game here.
Stuart, do you agree with Andrew that at the end of the day, what we should all be concerned about watching is that the end game here is the Trump administration using these forces either for folks to get used to it, and then most importantly, maybe to intimidate voters from voting in 2026, or even later on in 2025 in New Jersey and Virginia in these gubernatorial races?
Yeah, I think Andrew's exactly right on this. They're trying to normalize seeing tanks in the street, trying to normalize having military near polling places. I mean, if we were talking a year ago and I said, look, a year from now, there's going to be a United States force of masked men who have a budget larger than the Marines chasing gardeners through Brentwood, we would have said, that's crazy. We're going to have tanks in D.C. We said, no, that's not going to happen. But look, this is what Republicans understand is that the country is not with them, not the majority of the country. They won one election, which was very much a change election. You had the right track at 27%. No incumbent parties ever lost when it was below 45. You had a president with a job approval of 40. No party's ever gotten more than 2 points higher. But that's not an endorsement of Trumpism. And you've seen this sort of Fabergé egg of the coalition that Trump put together collapsing. And they know this. This is why they're trying to curate these elections. This is what Cleta Mitchell's working on. This is what Leonard Leo is working on. And it is extraordinarily dangerous. And I just say this, no one ever tried to change the rules of a game they were winning. And that's the key here. Republicans know the more that people vote, the less the odds are they're going to win. And they're not stupid, and they're trying to change these rules in every way they can.
Andrew, Stuart.